Greetings! It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on D20 Modern, the modern take on the 3rd edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Where we last left off, we were talking about encounter level and how it affects your experience rewards. How it reflects that. We'll finish talking about the day and start talking about campaigns. But let's finish that talk of the encounter level, the EL. Now that after everything we talked about before, you've calculated your EL, it's time for your experience reward. If your players went into this encounter and accomplished all the goals they set out to accomplish, this does not necessarily mean they defeated the enemy or ran from the enemy or whatever it is in comparison to that. Killing the enemy does not necessarily mean the goals were accomplished. They had to have accomplished the important goal behind the encounter itself. Whether survival or something else had to be successful, then they have earned their experience reward. You take the encounter level which you've calculated, and there's a chart in the book which you compare the encounter level to the level of your heroes, and that will give you the experience that you should reward them as a result of this encounter. If you look carefully at the chart, you will notice that no encounter 8 higher than your heroes or 8 lower than your heroes is listed here. The reason behind this, that is 8 lower, is way too weak, and 8 higher should be so much more powerful than them, you would never consider them fighting it. Now, lower, on the other hand, can be supplemented in order for your players to fight against it. You could have many more numbers of those lower ones until you get to the point where it would be appropriate for this encounter to gain experience. But the encounter itself is giving the experience, not the individual creature, not the individual CR. You could also include those circumstance changes we talked about before, which can lower or raise EL, and add them in to make something that is either weaker or more powerful, more EL appropriate. Put it within that range of your player's level and make sure that they can actually face against it. Again, 8 higher should be way outside their normal comfort zone. That is the very tip of the, I got a 1% chance of actually winning this fight. So that's, if you're trying to drop it, you want to drop it probably more than that before you have your characters actually encounter it. You're just getting it in a theoretically possible range with that. Always remember, your judgment as a GM is going to be what's appropriate for determining the final experience that they're going to be gaining. If you felt like when they got through that encounter, they didn't get the amount of experience, and this is not saying luck, this is saying circumstances altered in such a way that they wouldn't have gained the experience. Luck is one thing, circumstances another. Circumstances you did not account for originally. Ones that they took advantage of and gained their success, or they made it more difficult, you can alter the experience for them right then and there. Just because you calculated the EL doesn't mean that is the actual EL they encountered. And I'm going to hammer it home one more time, this is not dice rolls. If everyone criticaled it, and it rolled crap, and it died instantly, and it was some kind of enemy you were fighting, that's just luck. That's not any kind of skill or taking advantage of a situation. Now let's talk about a campaign. A campaign is in fact an ongoing world where your heroes are set in it as the adventurers. A set of adventures and missions that are technically strung together, are connected together. They very well may have one storyline connecting them all, or a series of storylines. The important factor here is that this campaign is going to be centered around your adventurers, your heroes, which are going to be central to it. The story will follow them. This adventuring group may change its members over the course of the adventure, but the core principles of the group and the goals of the group overall will always stay the same, and will keep them driven on the path that they have, linking everything together. It's also important to note that just because you have a series of stories back to back does not make it a campaign. These should be linked in a way that makes it make logical sense, makes it feel like it is a flowing story between the two of them, because the campaign is the overarching story that might go between book to book. Think of one mission, one adventure as a single book in a series of novels. The connection between the two of these books is where the campaign comes together. That's what makes it sense. That's what you have to link together. Whether, again, it's the overarching storyline or just a couple of storylines, entirely up to you. Now, when creating your campaign world, well, you can take a couple of paths. You could, for one, use your own version of Earth. Two, the book does give some suggestions for various worlds that we will talk about in the future. You could use one of them. Or you could make up something entirely on your own. Whatever path you want to take for the world you want to use is entirely up to you. Just know that the fact that this fantasy version of a world, because it's going to be a fantasy, it's not the real world, might look like it if you chose to go that path, but it's not the real world. It is more than just a backdrop. It should feel like a real world, where it is everything else around them, and the heroes and the plots are this element that is stuck into this world, and it should feel natural and flowing. It should feel like a living world that your heroes and plots have been inserted into. So it is more than just this backdrop. It is a part of the game you're building, a part of the world you're building. Heroes can get incredibly powerful, but they should always feel that they are only a mere component in a larger world, that the world is so large and vast that they're only a speck, a drop in this entire bucket that is the existence of their world. As great as they can ever reach, they're only a part of it. Consistency is a word that is very important to your language here when you're building your campaign world. Every time your players may visit this city over here to go to this one shop that they like, and they meet the same person over and over again, makes it feel like it's a real place. When they learn these people's names, when they learn their favorite waitress's name, the great store down the street that they might want to visit, this adds to consistency. Once you have your consistency established, you can begin to make minor changes. Maybe the guy that owns the supply shop that they want retires and someone else in his family replaces him. Now, this is a change that your characters can recognize, that they can see and understand that they had no part of. Now we've made the world feel like it's a little alive. You establish a consistent story, and then you make these little minor changes which seem realistic to any normal world that would be in, the world that you're establishing. So it feels like the world is turning and changing around them, and the characters are merely part of this world, not the be-all, end-all of this world, a component of it, an existence within it that follows through these natural laws of these world, and they feel like it is a major part of the game itself, that the world itself is important. But that's it for today. I finished up talking about awarding experience to your players by talking about using the EL we were calculating over the past couple of weeks and figuring out how much experience your players are going to get. I did talk about that you might still want to adapt that EL even after everything is said and done, because once the encounter actually happens, some final adjustments might be needed. Might not be, but might be needed, just depending on what happened there. Not the rolls, not the luck, what happened with the circumstances, because that could have changed everything. You never know. Then I began talking about campaign worlds. Building your own campaign world. Well, you can build one in any sort of way. Adapting Earth, adapting one that's listed somewhere, making something up completely on your own, but making a world that makes your heroes feel that they're part of it, that this campaign, this overarching adventure centered around them, set in this world that you're building, that world that feels alive and that they feel appropriately part about, that the overarching stories connect together in such a way that it makes sense. Whether it's one big plot, one separate little plots, over and over again, they still connect, glued together, glued in this world, which almost surrounds them at all times, making this entire package that is your campaign. In the next episode, We have a little bit more about campaigns to talk about, and then we're going to move on to favors and contacts, which we sort of have mentioned before, but we're really going to dive into talking about them less on the NPC side and more on what they mean side. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows your support for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, linked in the description below. I do have some great rewards there for people that support me, and it helps improve the channel, which I always enjoy doing. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.